Okay, so we finally got to this point in the season. Week 18 is concluded and the regular season is over, but don't worry, I'm still going to do recaps for the playoff games, but this is the last one for the regular season. It's been a fun ride though. Thanks for watching all the way through, and without further ado, let's get into the games. You know, I respect the tank, Cleveland. I really do. I gotta say, props to you. I didn't even know Bailey Zappi was in the league. Legendary pull right there. But this game was over after the pick six right away, and both teams got their desired outcomes. Cleveland just had an absolute disastrous season, again, with injuries decimating them, as well as the awful Deshaun Watson situation, but with the second pick in the draft, they're going to have a chance to take one of either Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. So, I mean, I would probably do it and don't really think about it because Deshaun Watson is absolutely cooked as a player and a human being, but we'll see what they do because that situation is one that they need to get correct 100%. And Baltimore, I think, has quietly become my new Super Bowl favorite. I just feel like it's their season, and I'd be shocked if they didn't at least make the AFC Championship game. So, we'll see, though.
I love you guys. I make all you guys the crackers of the days today.
Who here remembers when the Steelers were good? I don't either, I guess, sort of. I don't know. I had such a complicated relationship with the 2024 Steelers, and I still do. I thought their defense was going to be top one, and Arthur Smith football would be enough on offense. But what I failed to realize is that it turns out that that doesn't work versus the NFL's best. But this wasn't even close to the NFL's best. This is the Bengals, man, who are bad, but the Steelers offense just put together arguably their worst offensive performance of the season, and they've now lost 4 in a row with a chance to break Cincy's hearts. And let's start with George Pickens. Sweet Lord, what is wrong with Mike Tomlin and his weird connections to just ruining elite wide receivers' brains? I mean, I don't have an explanation. AB, Juju, Pickens, it's all happened in like the last 6 years, and young boy himself right foot creeped his way to 1 reception, 0 yards, and 3 drops. Mother of pearl, this team is bad, man. I couldn't tell you what Russell Wilson was doing at the end of the game, but honestly, this one doesn't matter that much, and I don't know, man. A part of me thinks that it would just be hysterical if the Steelers, like, dropped 35 on the Ravens next week and somehow pulled it off. This was pretty much the only game that mattered for playoff reasons in the early slate of games. If the Bucs won, they're in the playoffs, and they clinched the NFC South. But if they were to lose, the door would open up for Atlanta, and they'd get in with a win. And early on, all signs were pointing towards New Orleans being able to take out the Bucs. Clint Kubiak called a great first half. Spencer Rattler was playing some solid football. I wish he could have done that last week, but the Bucs defense was getting absolutely gashed, and they looked exhausted, defending comebacks and screen passes over and over as the Saints marched up and down the field, and hope seemed lost. The Bucs' best chance at making the postseason looked like it was going to come from Carolina beating the penis. However, Baker Mayfield had other plans. I love Baker, man. I got a video coming out on his career so far, hopefully after at least the Bucs playoff game versus the Commanders, but the guy is a trooper. And he and Bucky Irving were willing the Bucs offense to victory all by themselves, basically, despite having multiple passes deflected and the Bucs racking up 12 penalties. 12! That is tied for the most penalties they've had in a game all year this season in the biggest game of the year. So if the Bucs lost this game, Todd Bowles would have had to batten down the hatches because Bucs fans would have wanted his cranium on a silver platter. But Baker Mayfield just bailed them out, along with the Saints actually playing like a team led by Spencer Rattler and Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the second half. Tampa Bay closed it out. Baker found Jalen McMillan on a beam of a throw, and they actually did it. Dude, they had the game 100% won, and they still decided to give the ball to Mike Evans, and he got 1,000 yards again. That's awesome, man. Football's just cool. So, with the Tampa Bay win, this game doesn't matter. But this was still a super fun one in a non-biased way, and let's talk about the Panthers for a second again. Obviously, let's give Bryce Young the credit he deserves. 5 touchdowns is ridiculous, even versus Atlanta's defense. But can we give Dave Canal some credit too? The Panthers seemingly have found themselves a coach for the foreseeable future, and if Bryce Young can continue to develop, who knows? They might have themselves stability. So if they can pick up a solid weapon in the draft or something, this team could be pretty solid next year with a healthy defense. Atlanta, 44 points shoved up your ass by the Carolina Panthers. Really? Really, that's how you're going to end the season. The coaching process was horrible all the way through. Raheem Morris didn't have his guys ready to play at all. That's it. They had the talent advantage over Carolina, like 100-1. The Panthers have the worst defense in football, and the Falcons' offense did well enough. I mean, they had 38 points. That should be enough to beat Carolina, but no, it wasn't. The defense was the real issue damn near all year. It just was. They had their moments, but Jesse Bates and AJ Terrell were doing quite literally everything for them this season. Just seeing Matthew Judon in coverage hurt my corneas. And after all that, after all you did in the offseason, trying to retool this roster and hype up this season as the one year that was going to bring the Falcons back to the playoffs, you won one more game. You won one more game than you did last year with the whole fiasco in the Mustache Man. $100 million to Kirk Cousins to be the savior, and his ass was sitting on the bench healthy for most of the second half of the season. And the fact that the Panthers, the 2024 Carolina Panthers, dropped 40 plus on you should be worn on Falcons defenders' jerseys as a medal of pure embarrassment. Incredible work, y'all. I'm gonna miss these rants. See you next year. Okay, now, I want to laugh at the Patriots for 2 minutes. I do. All they had to do was lose the game. Like, it's not even a playing hard thing. No, it was actually mathematically, and for the future of the franchise, 100% correct to lose this game. And I'll give the Patriots credit. They tried. They pulled Drake May and decided to see what they had in Joe Milton, a guy who I was actually excited about as a prospect, and he lit the Bills on fire and roasted them alive. He played amazing football. A 110 passer rating with one of the best plays of the season that was called back in his first game as a 6th-round rookie. So I don't think I can really blame the Patriots coaching staff too much for winning this game, which is a crazy sentence in and of itself. But I think they did try to lose a little bit. But Mitchell Trubisky is really bad, and the Bills had no reason to care at all. But it doesn't matter. If you don't get the job done, you will pay the price. And they fired him. What a year, Gerard. Join Rod Rust in the all-time worst Patriots coaches list, buddy. Wow, what a disaster campaign. Can you believe once upon a time I believed in the Patriots this season?
Where am I?
So this game was sort of pointless. The Packers had a small chance to dodge the Eagles in a rematch from that disaster field game from week 1, but it didn't work out that way because they actually lost to the Bears. I know, but come on, how poetic is that? After the darkest year the Bears have had in maybe 10 or damn near 20 years, this happened. The football gods showed some mercy. It ended off perfectly, and I'm sorry, yes, I get it. The tank matters, but the draft pick. This is a division rivalry, and the Bears needed to win this game to have at least some momentum going into the offseason, and Caleb wasn't great in this one again, but that quick pass to DJ Moore was pretty filthy, and the Bears finally ended their streak of not beating Green Bay since 2018. Ownership has been suspended. So I'm really interested in who the Bears hire. Obviously, the problem remains at the highest level in the McCaskey family, but if they can somehow manage to bring in a Ben Johnson, that would make things very, very interesting. So I'm still hyped for what the Bears have on their roster, and for Green Bay, they need to focus on health and better hope Jordan Love is fine, because the Eagles are going to give them 100% of what they can handle. And regardless of who wins that Eagles-Packers game, a very good team is going to be eliminated from the playoffs.
Oh, shit!
Well, hold on here. I thought this game wasn't going to matter at all, but it ended up mattering a little bit. I guess the Commanders got the outcome they wanted, where, nobody's going to say it, but a healthy Philly team on the road in round 1 is something nobody wants to see. So it ended up working, though. Marcus Mariota was enough to beat Trey Lance, and because nobody ever sees the Marcus Mariota keeper coming, and a touchdown later continues the magical year for the Commanders, who genuinely have been like the most fun team to root for if you're a Commanders fan. And they now have the glorious matchup of playing against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And, for Dallas, this was not a good year. Let's be honest. The Eagles continue to just dominate that division, and their entire next few years are pretty much dependent on the hope that Dak Prescott can return to 2023 form, but I personally think their window is easily closed. However, not sure Jerry feels the same. Okay, this game actually didn't matter in any form whatsoever. The first touchdown of the game was Tanner McKee to Anai Smith? And if that doesn't tell you it's week 18, I don't know what does. So let's talk about the Giants season as a whole. yeah, I know, it's time to get sad, I guess. They could have easily gotten the first overall pick if they didn't drop a near 50 bomb last week out of nowhere. But, you know, whatever. I guess you don't get Shadar Sanders because of that. But we'll see if they decide to go Travis Hunter or maybe beef up the O-line with a third pick. Who knows? But this was a disaster of a season. And Brian Daboll might not be the guy long term. But at least Malik Neighbors is good. And also, I feel like I gotta say this because I don't think I've really talked about him all year. But Kayvon Thibodeau has quietly been like the most disappointing player in the NFL. It's been tough to see. More football that's pointless. Yeah, woohoo. I mean, I guess the Titans got their end goal of somehow capitalizing on the Patriots oopsie and lucked into the first overall pick. So now they get a choice. Ward or Sanders? I mean, it has to be quarterback, right? But could you imagine how funny it would be if they like publicly said that Will Levis is their guy for the future and they took a lineman? That'd be peak comedy, but it won't happen. So enjoy what I can't, Tennessee. And the Texans are going to take this garbage division with ease and are limping into the playoffs with an injured and bad team already. But who knows? Maybe the Stroud magic will return just in time for a deep run. Anything's possible with Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson, who both didn't make Pro Bowls, by the way, which is an absolute crime. This is the first game of the entire season where I literally didn't take a single note. The Jags wanted to lose. They lost, and the Colts season was lost the second it was clear that Anthony Richardson wasn't the guy that we all thought he could be. It sucks, man. I'm still hoping he can find a way to get some of his potential Lamar Jackson ceiling back next season, but I don't know. He's worrying me. Accuracy and reading defenses in general should continue to be his main concern, as it was last season, but there was no improvement this year. But still, the raw talent is there, so I wouldn't count out AR just yet.
I'm really thinking about buying a noose on the way home.
This was the most important game of the week. The Bengals and the Dolphins' fates rested entirely on how good Carson Wentz could play. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm not saying the Chiefs threw the game, but I want to say at the very least, Andy Reid was not exactly busting out his best play calls versus Denver. It was a very conservative game all the way through from Kansas City's offense. Like, this was a masterclass in how to lose a game, which I want to say their goal was, because they already got what they wanted. Might as well just kick the Bengals in the balls, why not? And although they didn't become the second team to ever win 16 games in a season, all they have to do is beat, like, the Chargers, and they're in the AFC Championship game. And meanwhile, Denver's finally done it. They gave the Chiefs all they had and proved themselves to be dangerous. And Bo Nix has led the Broncos back to the playoffs for the first time since the Sheriff was in town. So nobody's giving them a chance versus Buffalo next week, which I guess it makes sense, but who knows? In the wise words of one Kevin Garnett, anything's possible. You know what? I'll take it. Obviously, I would have loved those two losses versus the Saints and Jaguars. I've just been upset for the last 2 weeks, but like, honestly, those two teams were legitimately worse than us somehow, so I can only be so upset. But shout out to the Patriots and Jets for getting dubs today, and now we got the 6th pick in the draft, which is pretty solid. So no QB again, which, you know, whatever. I can keep waiting. I can be sad for a few more years. It is what it is. And maybe we'll grab a Tetero McMillan or someone like that, which would be cool, but still, man. I can't say enough how miserable of a season this was. It was brutal, but it's over now. No more Raiders football, which will be peaceful, and I don't know. This game was a good summary of the whole season. A slow, agonizing death. We knew that the season was over after week 3 versus the Panthers, and the Chargers will be in the playoffs with the coach I wanted and the quarterback I'm jealous of. I hate myself. Pointless game, part 1 of 3 for the late slate. Yay! Isaac Guerrero got hurt, so that's pretty funny. The Niners aren't allowed to have anyone healthy, but yeah. The San Francisco 49ers rolled out Josh Dobbs for something resembling a revenge game, but boy did that not come true. And instead the Cardinals dropped near 50 points and managed to actually finish higher than the 49ers on the season, meaning a year removed from coming seconds away from a Super Bowl victory. The 49ers finished last in the worst division in football. Crazy, man. Absolutely mental. It was a good year, Seattle. It really was. It just wasn't good enough. And it now seems like Tyler Lockette, who's been on a great many of my fantasy teams over the years, is calling it a career, which is sad, but they definitely got themselves a star in Jackson Smith-Njigba, who will grab the mantle from the old man. The questions for them, though, remain around if Geno is good enough to take them over the hump. Like, this is a solid team, but at this point, we know who Geno is. He's Geno. He's pretty good, but I'm not convinced he can consistently be good enough to win more than one playoff game. And in the NFL, if you can't do that, what are you doing? And meanwhile, the Rams already clinched the playoffs and are going to be facing off against the Minnesota Vikings, which is a lot less exciting than the Lions, but hey, what are you gonna do? I'd be shocked if the Rams pull it off.
I'm out, bro. You know, so.
Well, damn, man. If this is Aaron Rodgers' last game in the NFL, at least he went out on top, but I might miss that old man. I will. Near 300 yards and 4 touchdowns was cool to see, and yes, they were playing against Stu Huntley, who is probably the worst quarterback in the entire NFL, and the worst that the Dolphins have had since, like, Cleo Lemon, but a win is a win, and screw their tank. So now the Dolphins are kind of forced to just reload next year and either trade Tyreek Hill, because apparently he's just pissed all of a sudden, or pray that he isn't washed and try to reconcile the relationship. While the Jets need, I repeat, need to get their head coach and GM signings correct, but they won't, right? I think the rebuild needs to start now, around Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner. This team desperately needs a culture, and I'm sorry, I don't see that coming from running back with Aaron Rodgers and friends. Get a new OC along with a fresh staff, and just try to establish something resembling a culture, okay? It is desperately needed.
Come over here and kiss me on my hot mouth.
Well, that was disappointing. I mean, this was set up to be the game of the year, right? Every single year for like the past 6 or 7 years, the NFL purposely tries to set up the biggest game to be the last game of the regular season. Lions-Vikings. Winner gets the 1 seed. The loser has to go on the road. And the Vikings came out, and honestly, Sam Darnold just looked rattled. And I'm getting a little worried now that the playoff pressure may get to him. He was missing throws left and right and responded horribly to pressure. He had one of the worst games he's had since he was a Jet. It was tough to watch, but the Vikings defense kept them into the game for long enough. That's why I'm still, not completely off of my Vikings stock, but yeah, you can only contain the Lions offense for so long. And eventually Jahmyr Gibbs started absolutely flaming them, and the Lions kind of blew them out. In the biggest game of the year, the Vikings came out completely flat, but luckily they got a pretty easy matchup against the Rams, so they should be able to get out of that, and if they are the lowest seed remaining, then they will actually just come right back here and play against the Lions again, which would be hilarious. But still, the Vikings should have won this game. They had so many opportunities in the red zone, but they just could not score a touchdown. So yeah, it was a disappointing game, but still, the Lions got it done. But before we go, for the final time in the regular season, you know what time it is. It's time for the Tubfrog Discord Awards, where I turn to you, the people, to see what you thought were the best and worst plays and players from Week 18. And without further ado, let's begin, because I asked what you thought the best play was from Week 18, and it ended up going to Mike Evans' catch for 1,000 yards. I mean, I didn't think it was going to happen, but they were nice enough to keep his streak going, and maybe he can set the NFL record next year. Who knows? And then I asked what the worst play was from Week 18, and it went to Russell Wilson not throwing it out of bounds, which was, I don't know, man. That whole 2-minute drive was just absolutely atrocious, and I think the Steelers are done. I don't think they have a shot in the playoffs. And then I asked what the best game was from Week 18, and it went to Panthers versus Falcons. I know, crazy that the game that didn't have any bearing on anything, if the Bucs won, which they did, ended up being the best. But it was a fun game, and Bryce Young is bringing the Panthers back. And then I asked who the best player was from Week 18, and it went to Bryce Young. I can't believe. Could you imagine telling that to someone in Week 2, that the best player in the last week of the season was Bryce Young, but not because he was playing because of garbage time? No, he was actually just playing amazing. Crazy. And then I asked who the worst player was from Week 18, and George Pickens. I was going to say I was a little surprised Sam Darnold didn't win this, but I don't think George Pickens could have played worse, so good for him for that. And then I asked who the best team was from Week 18, and the Lions pulled this one off. I don't think they played a completely perfect game of football. The offense was pretty bad for 2.5 quarters, but they figured things out. They have a lot of talent, and they got it done, and they're looking scary as usual. And then I asked who the worst team was from Week 18, and it went to the Vikings. Yeah, I mean, the Steelers could have gotten this one, but they still almost won the game in the end, and meanwhile, the Vikings just got absolutely plastered on national TV in front of everyone watching this game and expecting a classic, so makes sense. And then I asked what your favorite meme movie was, and there was a lot of answers, but it ended up going to Revenge of the Sith, which is probably my pick too. I mean, it's so quotable. It doesn't miss. But Anyways, if you like this video, then subscribe, because I got a lot of videos on the channel just like this one. And if you did like this video, watch this video I did a few days ago on Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals and their miserable franchise's history. It's pretty good, trust me. And thanks to all my patrons for pledging $1. It truly does mean a lot. But anyways, until next time.